Oh God, no! Don't stop that.
We're starting now. Hello, guys. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things you love. It's the second show of the day, the third. If you followed us over to Football Link earlier, I'm here with an eclectic panel. First and foremost, let me apologise for the tardiness. We were getting to know each other in the background, figuring out what everyone does and doesn't do to pay the bills. But we're here now to talk to you about maybe someone else is going to be starting to pay some bills at Tottenham, a little bit around the Amanda Staveley story. I don't know if there's any truth to it, but we're going to figure out what that looks like. We're also going to be talking with the boys here about Thomas Frank, whether we're warming up to the idea. I've just put a tweet out saying that I am warming up to the idea. I've been a little bit cold on it, and now I'm warming up like a bit of yesterday's Chinese. Guys, please smash the like button if you know where it is. It's a thumb button. Johnny's disappeared again. I'm not sure what's going on with his screen. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Please also get over to Oso Spurs and to Football Inc. The links are pinned into the top of the comment section. And we're going to get going. Drew, how are you, mate?
I'm doing all right. Where's old Qui-Gon John over here? He's off again. I'm doing all right, mate. I'm doing all right. Like you, after the dust has settled for 24 hours or as much as it can settle in the world of Tottenham Hotspur, I'm kind of warming up to the guy. I don't want to tempt fate. I'm still not, until the shirts, until they're doing this kind of vibe. Hang on, let me see if I can. Yeah, until they're doing that, I'm not sure I want to know. But yeah. Looking forward to the show. Looking forward to chatting with these gentlemen. And let's get into it.
Would Thomas Frank be holding up a shirt, or would he be holding up some sort of like turtleneck or something? I'm not sure what it is that he wears. I haven't really got used to his eclectic fashion statements yet, but we'll figure that out in a second. Good to see you, Drew. Great to have you back on the show, mate. Jim,
thanks, mate.
Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show, mate. Also Spurs fame, doing wonderful things, putting out some non-clickbait. We'll call it click-worthy content, financial insights, and getting people on from every walk of life that has some sort of insight to bring around Brentford or player rating. It's just amazing what you're doing over there, mate. Great to have you back, mate. How are you?
Thanks. Yeah, doing great. Thanks. Doing good. Like Drew said, feeling, you little despondent a couple of days ago, but feeling a lot better now. I've kind of looked under the hood at what Thomas Frank's all about. Reflected on what this could mean for us moving forward. So yeah, I'm good. Good
to have you, mate. Johnny, buddy. I think you just about got your camera back to something like seeing your face. A little while ago, it looked like, what was it? You said, Drew, Darth Vader? No,
Obi-Wan. After he'd been done in by Vader, he's sitting on the bench with old Yoda.
It looked like something from Star Trek or from Doctor Who. I had this. There you go. Yeah. Listen. I'm a big fan of Thomas Frank. I've got to be honest with you. I never thought that he would ever become the Spurs manager, if I'm brutally honest. I'm for one happy, but I think the fan base are going into double meltdown.
Well, that's why I titled the phrase. I've spent a bit of time. I went and used Grok for the first time. I'm a paid blue tick, and I was like, oh wait a minute, I've got a free AI thing there. Let's see if it's any good. I said, can you please create me an image of the Spurs emblem that's in some sort of meltdown mode? And it gave me what it gave me that's on the thumbnail. So I was pretty impressed with it on first insights. But yeah, like the meltdown is mad. The meltdown is mad, boys. And I'm trying to understand why. Why is it, right? Like the Levy out as the change for Tottenham again, no problem with it. Do what you got to do. I support the movement, but I've seen a lot of people talking about this as another project failure from Enoch, from Levy, and I don't really understand how it's a failed project if we won a trophy, because you're either Ange in because he won the trophy, then you shouldn't be calling it a failure because your boy did what no one else did, and if you were Ange out, then you should be happy that you got your way. Drew, I'll start with you, mate. The fan base is never a dull day in the Tottenham community, but it seems like right now everyone is up in the air. No one can really land on an opinion that's sort of stable for more than 5 minutes before something else comes out. What's your sort of take on where the fan base are at right now, buddy?
I'll be honest, so without wanting to offend too many people, the fan base for me is very much like American politics. You got extreme left, extreme right, and then everybody else in the middle sort of looking at each other going, really? Can we not all just get along? Kind of how that's really like how I see it. I mean, and obviously there was always going to be the people that came to follow the club that were there for Ange, just like we had, the people that follow Mourinho, the people that follow Conte. So there was always going to be that portion that I think, and especially with the way that it's ended. I mean, even I feel, I fall back into the guy while he was here. He had my support, but even I can understand that it's a little bit unsavory the way it's ended up going, right? And I'm sure, I think somebody mentioned it on a podcast I was listening to this morning, and it's like 2 years to the day that he was hired. So maybe there was something in that with having to hit that, past 2 year mark or something.
Terminal.
Yeah, something in the contract. But, I think, yet again, it's kind of given me Martin Jol being sacked at half-time vibes. I just don't like the way it's been handled by the club. I don't think he deserves, the vitriol that he's been getting, but then I also don't necessarily know that he's entitled to all of the praise. I mean, I'm on record as saying that I would have liked him to have stayed. I would have been happy to have given him, the next season. I mean, what I actually said was give him the beginning of the season and let's see how he does. And people took that as, well, kind of what's the point in giving him that? Obviously, I wanted to have given him the whole season, but football works like football works. If he'd have been given the next season and it had all gone to shit after 10 games, then he was gone anyway. So, but I would have liked to have seen season 3, seen how it panned out. It wasn't to be. So now we move on. And having let my feelings to one side, let my feelings to the club sit to one side, looked over some of Thomas Frank's stuff. Are the TVs as impressive as one another? No. But you don't get the chance until you get the chance. And he's done nothing for me to suggest he's not worthy of that. Do I understand? Is it a sideward or downward step for some people? Yes. He's not done it on the biggest stage. He's not done it, Wednesday, Saturday. So ultimately, we're just going to have to wait and see. But as far as the man, he doesn't get my anger isn't directed at him. He gets my full support. And I've liked what I've heard from him. Kind of, dare I say it, I don't want to tempt fate, but he kind of gives me Poch vibes circa 2014, 2019, because at that point, Poch hadn't really done much in terms of stuff in the past. And yet he came in and kind of galvanized us and took us as what we perceive to be another level that we now want to get back to. So I'm with him until, there's no need to be with him anymore. But he seems like a decent candidate.
Yeah, I love that sort of take there, Drew. Jim, I'll come to you next, mate, and then we'll reverse the order back on the next question. What's the how do you feel about I mean, it looks like it's going to be him, right? 10 to 1 odds on. You put a pound on right now, you win 10 pence. Not a lot of risk, but 10 pence is still 10 pence. So, put enough money on, you might be able to buy a cup of coffee or something. What's your general vibe on him, mate? And also, like, how did you feel? I haven't spoken to you obviously since, or personally or on a stream since. And I know you were someone who was on the Anjin sort of train for definitely throughout the season. Did that change or waver at all towards the end there of his time?
No, I always stuck to my view on it that I felt I wanted to see season 3. I think the analogy I was using was, you've seen The Beach, Leonardo DiCaprio. He meets that Scottish addict in the hostel, gives him a map. And although a lot of the unwavering belief in Andrew is based on emotion and things that, you can't be obstinate about it. You got to be honest with yourself. A lot of it is based on feelings, not facts. But I was so sure that map in that 3rd season was going to lead me to the treasured island that he promised. But you've got to be honest with yourselves and say there's no guarantees of that. And the club did the right thing, even though it was very frustrating as fans, to take a bit of time, let emotions settle down, do a true evaluation of everything, and make a decision based on a group of people as to whether it's the right decision for us to move forward onto that final part of that journey or not. And if you are voted as Spurs fans, it would be relatively split down the middle as to what was to do next. Yeah. And we'll never know. And I think that's the thing I think it's a bit of a shame, is I wanted to know, because I feel like, although Frank, and I'll talk about him in a second, what I think of him, but he's a really good option. I felt like if we got 10 games in and we're like, right, hands up here, season 3 was a lie. I was wrong. We need to move on from this guy. I still think Frank would have been attainable. So I think you could have had a world in which you got to see whether it was going to play out the way Poch and said it would have or not, but we decided not to do that. But look, the advantage of making the move now is You're going to give Frank a time to get a couple of players in that he feels will help us at the start of the season. And him in general, I think I know people have said he's underwhelming, a mid-table manager, all that stuff. I think that's a pretty disrespectful to the guy when you lift up the hood. I think it's because his background is he's worked his way up through the ranks of a club. Yes, he was a manager back in I think it was his hometown. He was managing his first, but then he took a step back to become assistant manager at Brentford and worked his way up the chain. And yes, he hasn't got the trophies on his CV, but hey, like Eddie Howe, how many people would take him if he had been available and said, yeah, I'll take Spurs? His CV said relegated Bournemouth and unemployed for 2 years before he went to Newcastle, but he's clearly not an idiot. He's a good tactician. Frank's a great tactical player who will work with what he's got. He's got a decent demeanor. He's a good human being. And I think he's the type of person who would commit to a 3-4 year patient project at Spurs and wouldn't demand everything to be put at his feet in the first transfer window, which that's the reality of being a manager of Spurs. You're not going to get everything you want up front. You're going to be told you're going to get this over 3 or 4 seasons, and we're going to take pretty risk-adverse decisions to get you what you need. And his history is working in youth recruitment as well, which I think that's really important for us. If our transfer strategy is focused on youth, you need a manager who understands how to nurture and grow youth. We need a manager who's going to continue to take Destiny Udogie, Lucas Berghvall, Micky van der Ven, Archie Gray, Wilson Odeber, and whoever else we sign to another level if we're ever going to be competitive with the teams in the top 4 again. And he ticks those boxes. What I would say is he's always started slow in both his managerial jobs. He won 1 in 6 in his first job and then 2 in 8 at Brentford. I think it would be, and I hope we don't do this as fans, a lot of people feel passionate and should have stayed. And, you know, I'm one of those, but it's not fair to put that onto Frank. You've got to give this guy the same respect and patience we demanded of Ange, and he deserves it too. He's a smart guy, and I think he deserves at least 18 months before we pass any heavy judgment on the guy. He's got a big task at hand. I think any manager coming in at Spurs, our expectations are up here, and the squad's down here at the moment. So, yeah, let's give him a shot.
Yeah, Johnny, mate, you've been warming me up to this idea for the last couple of weeks, mate. You know, when the noise first broke, or not even the last couple of weeks, I think we were talking about him before he got sacked. So, and I kind of always was like, I feel like we could do better. Right? I didn't want to take the risk for a sideways step, but I was also on the page of like, you know, what does better look like? What's realistic? And then as these names got chalked off, if he's the best we can get, I was like, well, I don't know, man. I'm not so sure. But you know what, bro? I think your confidence in him aligned with a lot of the content you sent me, a lot of the content that I've seen, and then more and more just reading up, thinking about the fact that we're going to be more organized and disciplined. Those sorts of things, Johnny, have kind of really settled my nerves a little bit. And presuming we're going to get the announcement tomorrow, mate, I'm actually quite excited now. What's your thoughts?
I mean, look, I've sort of been fortunate in the sense because my friend has had a player at Brentford for a number of years that I sort of inadvertently sort of started following Brentford and their progress in the Championship, their ups and downs. When Dean Smith left, Thomas Frank had impressed the board enough to give him the job. I mean, he wasn't the one who they initially were going to appoint. But I think, you know, he's not found it. He's not had it easy. I think his start at Brentford was quite shaky, to be honest with you. But he is a guy that this club needs. He's a hands-on coach, a guy who's on the training pitch, trying to improve players. Physically, tactically, mentally, okay? Not leaving it to others. No disrespect to Ange, but I could never understand how, as he wasn't on the pitch, that he didn't work with the same people over and over again that were in tune with his ethos. He had to teach that ethos to the new coaches and for them to teach the players. Whereas, you know, this guy has been doing it a long time. And the other thing I've noticed is, you know, when he's been ripped of an injury to a main or a key player, or a player's been sold, he doesn't sit around. He straight away goes to change the tactics. Now, often that would result in 3-4 games on the trot getting beaten. while they are trying to adjust to this new system. But once the players have understood that new system, they're back in the system and they start winning again. I mean, when you look at Brentford, the fact that Brentford, have the second lowest wage bill and spend in the league, I've always felt that he's batting above his station. And I think the thing is, in football circles, forget the the X, forget Facebook, forget YouTube, right? In the football world, outside of all of this, in the real world, he is very highly respected and very highly rated. And there's a reason why they call him the professor. He studies the game. I mean, he plays at 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 5 at the back. Sometimes he plays with 2 up. He looks at each individual game and the opposition, how to expose them and how to nullify them. And I think the fact that he's managed to keep Brentford on a level playing field throughout this time is a massive achievement, and I think it's really being downplayed. And as Jim was saying before, we have to give him a chance over the 18 months. We gave Ange probably the longest period as a manager who wasn't doing it in league.
Who's moving in the wrong direction, sort of thing.
Yeah. But we still stuck with him, and ultimately, not in the league, but in the cup, it bared fruit. But I really like him. I know he's a big Spurs fan, which is a big thing. We've seen
Thomas Frank is. I saw the comment about his mate.
He likes Spurs, right?
Really?
I mean,
okay.
You see him, I posted another video today where he was waxing lyrical about the Spurs midfield. Listen, yeah. I think really he's not sexy enough. I mean, if his name
are you saying that Thomas Frank is one of our own?
I'm just saying. If his name was Tomasini Francanini, right? I mean, everything would be so much better, right? I just think you got to give him a chance. I do think though that if he was to miraculously, and I say miraculously because it's a long shot, but if he was to miraculously come with Brian and Buemo, I think fans might get a little bit more excited than him just turning up here on his own. But I think certain fans, it's quite interesting. You said, Sean, about the swingometer with Ange
in the poll
before, after the parade, massively hands in, and then as the time went down, it started to swing back to 50-50. I think we saw a terrible reaction to the news that Frank might be coming in.
Let's stick a poll out right now, shall we?
I've just seen it's swung more. Even some of the people who weren't sure or who definitely know are warming.
So let's see. Are you happy? Hang on, what's going on there?
We see a 70% no coming.
Are you happy that Frank is joining Spurs? Is that the right question? I'm not sure. That'll do. We'll start with that one. Are you happy? Start the poll. Johnny, let me ask you this, mate. I'm going to reverse the order here, just to sort of take your run about starting with it and sort of incorporating here Jim's suggestion that, because I don't disagree with Jim, that for me, the unknown now of not knowing, or the unknown of whether or not Ange was the guy that's in the camp of people that didn't want him and call him for want of a better word, but a salesman, or I said the word, I shouldn't have used it, but I said fraud, but I didn't mean like that. I just meant like a kind of getting away with a little bit of luck in certain environments, all those sorts of things. And talking a good game that managed to figure out itself in the end, or whether he really is the real deal in the cups and all that stuff. I'm still not sure, and now I'll never know at Tottenham, right? And I feel like there's a part of me that I agree with Jim. It would have been nice to sort of see that, and I think ultimately it would have ended badly, and there would have been a change anyway in September, October, November, whatever, before Christmas time. And so the question I have for you is: you made the point that he makes these tactical adaptations that take a little bit of time. Now, but given that Ange spent 2 years drilling essentially one version of football into the team, and then he changed it towards the end, but is it important to give Thomas Frank, assuming he comes in on Monday, literally every single second that the summer provides us, so that he can have as much time on the training ground before that baptism of fire, right? Talk about the starting on the deep end, PSG and the Super League, the Super Cup. Is it important that is that one of the reasons why we're sort of now trying to get it done by Monday, so that, you know, so that he has, from the second the players get back, he has as much possible time available to be able to implement his back three tactic, his back four tactic, you know, etc.
I think what we've got as an advantage is the type of person that Thomas Frank is. He knows the ins out because he studies everything and everybody. He actually will know very well the Spurs team. There are managers who concentrate very much on their own setup, and obviously they watch the football, but not in depth as he does. He will still need every minute of that's available to, you know, for him to, you know, look at the team. But I think he will have a good idea of who he likes and who he doesn't like just from afar. I mean, we know he likes Brennan Johnson. We know he likes Archie Gray. You know, I think, you know, he's astute, Sean. You know, he's a smart guy.
Yeah, sure.
He's a very smart guy. I just think
a student of the game as well, right? For sure.
A student of the game. And, you know, he takes a lot of sayings from books and from famous people and uses it. The question mark for me is, will the fans give him a second? I mean, the baptism of fire going straight into the game against PSG. I mean, I can only imagine some of the headlines if we get beaten. I mean, you know, Inter Milan got embarrassed. As you know, there's a scenario there where we could potentially get embarrassed. Hopefully not. What would the reaction be? Are the players? Are we really to believe that the players were so upset that they're not interested in playing for another manager? I don't.
No, of course not.
You know, they've done the right thing. They've said their goodbyes in a nice manner, and it's the way to go. And they've done the right thing. I would like to say, though, for all the people that are putting Thomas Frank down, I would love to see what Ange Postecoglou would have done with that same squad, with the injuries that he had.
Well, Brentford, you mean?
Yeah. How he would have done if you'd have had to swap roles. I'm not saying that Thomas Frank would have won the Carabao Cup, the Europa League, but I think that Ange would have seriously struggled with that one style of play for the majority of his tenure. That he would have struggled at Brentford with it, and it's Thomas Frank.
You can't really do that style of play unless you have a team that is at least a top 3, 4, 5 team in the league they're in, right?
Yeah, but my point here is that Thomas Frank is in the survival game. But not only is in the survival game, he's in the winning game. If you ever listen to what he says, he never goes into any game, no matter if they're massively outgunned, thinking anything other than they're going to win.
Yeah.
And even though, in reality, when you're playing Manchester City with half your team missing, right, you've got a problem.
Yeah. No,
but they beat them, didn't they? They beat them at Man City, didn't they?
They have one.
They did. Their top 6 record was really strong. Frank. Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to come back. I'm going to ask a similar question to Jim, but I'm going to put a little spin on it for a split second. Before we do, guys, there's 1,800 people here. It's mad numbers. Love to see it. Can you smash the like button for me, please? And also, can you make sure that if you are watching this on YouTube, that you or that you have access to? Sorry, of course you're watching on YouTube, but if you have access to the comment section, can you go to the top, the pin comment, and make sure you smash your subscribe on Also Spurs and Football Inc. Both of the links are posted there. Drew, I don't think you've got socials, have you, mate?
No, I just cuckoo on everyone else's.
Love that, mate.
I just promise not to. I just promise not to push people out of the net and out of the nest. But I am on Spurs Diehards Tottenham Till I Die. I host a show Fridays.
Okay. Of course you are. Sorry, mate. I'll update the pin comment.
Sure, Drew, you're very social, mate. You're very
incredibly social. Yeah.
I try.
He is his own social media platform. Is Drew Zilla. Jim, let me come to you, mate. We sort of spoken a little bit about obviously, you know, giving Thomas Frank enough time and enough backing, enough support. That doesn't just come from the fans, right? It needs to come from the ownership. And right now, I mean, there's so much up in the air. I think a hell of a lot of fans are speculating, a lot of brand new ITKs that seem to know everything about everything, that are grabbing bits of information and spreading it around. And those things that seem to be going viral because I think everyone is hoping rather than believing that Daniel Levy's time at the club might come to some sort of end. I mean, first of all, I don't know what your thoughts are on any of those rumors. There is one out today that Amanda Staveley, who signed NDAs in January when she had a Qatar consortium that were apparently interested. Well, that didn't materialize. But the story today is that apparently she's been, moving a little bit further east in her search of finance, and that's going to Malaysia. I mean, like I say, God knows what's true, if any of it is. But with regards to the support for Frank, do you think that he might be walking into a club that, whether or not they have the intentions to support him, that because of the unknowns around all the other things that might be happening at boardroom level, that there's a little bit of a prioritizing, and that Thomas Frank might be the victim here of some inconvenient timing?
The whole direction of the club, when you look at the decisions being made at the moment, feels very much like a shift towards building a model more similar to Brentford's and Brighton's, which is a recruitment model that's long-term, sustainable, and has more upside than the one that's led to a lot of hit and misses and ups and downs over the last several years. One that's going to lead to a bit more consistent success, one that's less reliant on a head coach needing to be the main character of a football club. And I think Spurs, you can just see that through the additional roles with Vinay Venkatesham joining, with Johan Langer, with potentially Paratici coming back. All these things seem to imply we're building a structure, and also just with the more consistency around the recruitment model, hiring a manager who's got a lot of similarities to Ange in their principles. When you heard him talk about it, I know people have listened to Frank on YouTube, found loads of things about him. He's about, when he can, he's about pressing football, high intensity. He's all about big sprints. All those kind of things are similar, but he's more pragmatic than Ange in the sense that you'll see a lot more variance in his weekly kind of lineups and things like that and the way he sets up. But there's a lot of overlapping principles. As Johnny rightly said, there's big interest in the same players. We've had historically Archie Gray and Johnson being two recent ones that Brentford were after and we were after, which again shows a similar transfer policy. So it's all about providing that consistency. And I think the club's got changes coming in the same way I said to anyone who said, there's no news about Ange's contract, that just means he's staying. I'm like, I'm sorry, but when these rumors are rife, they are so easy to shut down for a football club, and they are so toxic and damaging when they're not shut down. So you would just shut them down by giving a Matt Law a quick soundbite to say, Postecoglou's safe. You chose not to do that. And I think the same goes when rumors start swirling around Daniel. There were a review of the board, Charrington coming on as a non-executive director. You know this well better than I, Sean, but non-executives don't have decision-pulling power, but they do in the sense they're reporting up to the main decision maker and they're a trusted advisor of that main decision maker. So he's there for a reason. They haven't just chucked him on there for a bit of fun. If they were completely comfortable with decisions being made currently, they would have just left things as they are and let those existing previous people carry on, not someone at Charrington's age, come in and start advising. So there's definitely changes afoot. What we don't know is, are those changes as extreme as Daniel Levy being ousted? People are using that term. For all we don't, the ambiguity around is this level of change partly because of the division around what to do with Ange? And I think we feel it as fans, right? How divisive was that whole should he or shouldn't he bit? That week was horrendous. We were all at each other's throats, arguing over it. If you think we were emotional, imagine being a Tottenham fan and genuinely being an employee of Tottenham and an investor of Tottenham and a fan of Tottenham, and that decision being on your lap. The emotions must have been huge in that boardroom. Yeah. It must have been knowing him as well as a human being.
But isn't that a reason why? Isn't that a reason why that the decision didn't need to happen post the game? Like it wasn't like there was 100 outcomes that were possible. There was 2 outcomes. It was binary. We win or we lose. And so they could have had contingency plans, Jim. Like, I'm sure in your sales team that you manage, right? Like there's advice that goes out to the sort of companies as part of the service, right? And like those things. Most businesses that your sales team will consult with will be very familiar with the concept of thinking, well, you know, not just cash flow forecasting, but performance forecasting, decision making, right? And for a £4 billion company, the idea to me that they had to wait until after the result to then get together and chew over the various connotations of, you know, what do we do if this, what happens if we do that? I just think that I would really hope, and if the answer is if the truth is that they literally didn't have the conversation until after they knew, then I think it stinks of a level of management that is, you know, more akin to baby fledgling companies, not ones that are trying to get investors in and give £500 million for the privilege.
No, I agree, and I think when you look at you got to look at what ENIC was and still is. When they took over Spurs, they were a company worth around £50 million, weren't they? Now they're a company that are going, oh my gosh, we're worth 4 billion, and we're the same group of mates who started the other company. So they're looking at themselves going, this is a bit bigger than it was, wasn't it, guys? And we've got a bit more consequence to a decision than we did in the past. And we're more visible and under the microscope than we were in the past. We've got more powerful shareholders than we had before. We've got more people invested in the club than we did before. We all know how it works when you decide that an executive needs to depart. You say to them, look, do you want to walk? We'll make this amicable. We'll make it look like it was your decision. You can walk in your own time. We'll do a nice tidy handover. Let's not make it this messy. And that's what it feels like Donna Cullen. From the outside in, that's what it feels like to me. And I think...
Well, it was tidy?
Pardon?
That it was tidy?
I think it's made to look like it's kind of like I'm just retiring. I've had enough. But I think there would have been discussion behind the scenes of, we're moving in a new direction now, and you're not part of that. And we can make this clean for you. You can walk away if your head held high in the public's eye, or we can, you know, vote you out and throw you out. And I think she would have gone, I'll take option A, thanks.
Yeah.
And I'll do a nice handover and I'll keep quiet. Yeah, we need, you just, like, we've got a new CEO of football for a reason, right? I think old Spurs just make a decision probably before the Europa League final on Ange, and it's done, moved on, but it's Daniel Levy making that decision on his own pretty much. Now I feel like the decision is a mix of people, which is why it's been so tough to make, because people are divided on what to do next. And the club hasn't firmed up its structure yet for next year. I think they're in a process where they're reevaluating everything, not just from the manager level. I think they're ready across the whole board. That would be my assumption from the outside in. And I kind of hope we are, because I think we're ready for that step to be that next level of, you know, enterprise. That's not a £50 million company. It's a £4 billion company.
Drew, on that basis, I mean, let me know your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree with what Jim just said. But on top of that, I guess if what Jim is saying is true, and I think it's a logical scenario, then again, I guess the question will still remain: is Thomas Frank going to be, assuming it's him, is he going to be the victim then of lack of clarity at the top? In that, if we don't have the money, clearly we're seeking finance. And Johnny, I'll come back to you in a minute to get your take as well, because I know you want to add some colour to that as well. But is Thomas Frank going to be walking into, you know, like an unclear pathway around who it is that's going to be sort of making the decisions, who's writing the signature, who's signing the checks, how much money is there? Is that dependent on the final I's and T's being crossed and dotted around investment that may or may not be taking place right now? Is all of that stuff going to make it very difficult for Thomas Frank and Paratici and Vinny to get together and identify the talent that they need immediately, whilst all the other clubs that have a little bit more clarity on their path can get straight down to business and speak to the various players that we might be looking at as well?
It's really difficult, because I think you have to really dig through the weeds and figure out what's really true, what's really not true. I mean, from what I understand, or just from what I've been listening to on various shows over the last few days, he's already had 4 interviews. He was already lined up as one form of replacement as far back as January. He was only just chosen as one of 2 potentials after the final. You know, there's just so many until, to be honest with you, and I don't know enough about business to really talk on that side of things without making myself look like an idiot and probably talking myself around in circles. So I'll let the two guys below me talk about that. But the one thing I will say, as far as Thomas Frank goes, and from what I've listened to on his view of things from interviews and things like that, I don't think he's going to walk into that situation. I think he would politely decline, but I think he's gone on record a couple of times as saying, I am absolutely not leaving Brentford unless I've got all my ducks in a row. And one of the things that was on the High Performance podcast that I listened to yesterday, they specifically asked him, I mean, they basically put it to him, look, Brentford's Brentford. It's a great club. You've done wonderful things. But let's face it, with the projection that you're on, essentially, there's every suggestion that a bigger club's going to come in for you. So what would you do to protect yourself? And he basically goes through and gives out the questions that he would be asking himself and the projective club as to ensure that he wasn't walking into that situation. So you can take two things from that. Either he's talking out of his arse, which I don't think he is, or what we hear from what's going on in the background is, weeks. I think Sava, big up Sava in the chat. I think he mentioned it like weeks ago. It's weeks, months in the making. These companies, especially $4 billion or projected $4 billion companies, these things don't get talked about or to my knowledge at least, don't get talked about within a matter of days or a couple of weeks. And these things happen. Like, it seems to me that the ball gets rolling a fair way back than when we actually hear the rumblings of what's going on, unless you've really got your ear to the ground. And even those sources tend to keep tight-lipped, because otherwise they're not sources for very long, because people don't use them or don't. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
I will say that I think, to me, Frank looks like he is comfortable and confident enough in himself to walk away from this shambles if he thought that 4 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now, 8 months from now, it was all going to change again. So that sort of tells me that in the background, maybe he's talking to people that aren't necessarily Levy this time round. I don't know. We'll see.
We shall see. Johnny, I'm going to let you have your spin on the same topic, mate. Before we start to move into some other areas, just quickly, super chat from Moondog says, so is this another rebuild? Well, no, it might be a rebuild, but from the top level rather than from the squad. But we'll find out.
Another name as well, Sean, was Antonio Nusa. He was another one that we were looking for, that also Brentford were going after. That obviously, so there are sort of similarities, as I think Johnny and Jim have mentioned, from what we've got currently to what he's been looking at previously. So I think, it's not a huge pivot, I don't think. So I don't think there's going to be a huge rebuild. Well, I mean, we're Tottenham. We don't do huge rebuilds.
Not a huge rebuild.
We're in a constant rebuild.
Every time
a perpetual.
It's just like a fan, like automatic go-to. Oh, not another rebuild. Like, get over yourselves, guys. It's not another rebuild, okay? Yes, players will come and go. That happens in every club, no matter what. Even if the manager's there, it's the natural progression of things. But he will assess it. So, sorry, Sean. So, what were we talking about? Right. So, Donna.
Well, just give me 2 seconds, mate. Let me just give it whilst I'm doing the super chats. Just quick finish it, and then I'll come back straight away. Good watch, lads. To Sava. Appreciate you, Sava. Good to see you, mate. By the way, after this show, guys, there's 2,000 people here. I'm not sure what the number will be by the end of the show, but after that, we're going to send you over to Sava's for the review, the Spurs review, his Sunday night show that starts at 7:30. So hang around, and then we'll transition you over there. Good watch, lads. Apparently, the decision was made 6 weeks ago, but they wanted to let the dust settle and fans enjoy the trophy. Levy isn't silly. Yeah, I'd hope that's the truth, mate. Like I say, if the conversation around it started on Thursday or Friday after the parade, or if it, I think worse yet would be if they'd made a decision and then they went, hang on a second, let's just take a pause for thought here. Look at the 250,000 people. If they were suddenly going to get caught up in emotions, it's a real problem. I hope that's not the case. But thank you for the super chat, Sav. I'm going to come to you now, Johnny. But just you asked the question around the Thomas Frank thing. I put the poll out. There's been how many people have voted? 1,000 votes basically, and 80% of people are happy that Thomas Frank is joining. There you go, Johnny.
Massive swing. It's a massive swing. Look, I'm going to say to you that the decision, the talks were weeks ago, right? If you think a club like Spurs are watching exactly what's going on without knowing the outcome of the final, you think they're just going to throw the dice and not think about that? It is conversations, without going into too much detail, conversations were had weeks ago, literally weeks ago. And, I understand why the board held off, if you want my honest opinion. When you look at that reaction, to the victory in Bilbao and that parade, what person, how cold have you got to be to have pressed that button at that moment? Every fan deserved to wallow in that victory, and also Ange as well. They deserved that moment, all of them, right? Yep. And I think any decision would have ruined it. Going back to the board, listen, I stated months ago when Charrington came in that this was a major change. Unfortunately, at the time, we had other things on our mind like football, and you and I with our thing on boards and monies and all that sort of stuff, right?
It wasn't a day that went past we weren't talking about it, was it, Johnny?
Yeah. So for me, this for me was a giant red flag, and I started investigating, and this is when I found out that he was Lewis's private banker, that he was the former head of Citibank in its most successful period. He's advised the Tavistock Group, which owns ENIC. Tavistock Group has roughly about 200 businesses, of which ENIC is just one. And I knew that something was going on. Now, it's not a secret to know that Levy approached Rothschilds just over almost 20 odd months ago now with a view to selling a stake in the club because they needed money for the capital intensive projects which they can't afford. Namely the hotel, White Webs, and the extension of the medical facilities. When I saw Vinay come in, I knew that big things were afoot. Not because he just came from Arsenal, but when Vinay left Arsenal, he was offered jobs with big private equity companies in both America, Saudi Arabia, and when he came back, he was offered a job at Newcastle. They would have pitched to Vinny this project, right? Considering how many jobs he was offered, to pitch to come to your rival, where you've been your rival for 20 years, to come and take a position this high up, he has to be aware of what is being presented and the ambition of the board. And when you look at someone like Vinny with 20 years experience, and you look at Charrington with his years as Citibank, head of Citibank, any inward investor would have confidence that the board would deliver on a financial footing what's needed. And also, like Vinny, with his background running the women's team, fan liaisons, for me, he's the perfect person to be, overseeing the football. The other thing is, if you honestly think that Fabio has come back to be an understudy or work alongside Johan Lang, forget it, right? He's coming as number one. He's going to be the man, right? That's it. And as far as the favourite woman who resigned, she didn't resign. She was meant to leave. Donna was meant to leave last year. And Daniel asked her to stay on. And so she stayed on for another year. So, this was something that was discussed months and months ago. But when you add it into the mix with all the talk of Carrington, the talk of investment, Levy stepping down, the ball changes, everything gathers pace. And, a small rumour becomes fact and, people run with it. I think what is certain, the club need money. And what is certain that with those two on the board and Fabio coming back, the club is going in the right direction, is my opinion.
I hope so too.
Coupled with a manager who is an extremely astute and clever guy, and as Drew pointed out before, Thomas Frank has a list of criteria of what would be needed for him to join a club. Now, the rumor is that he turned down Man United. I think it was before Ten Hag, when he was approached, because there were certain things that he just didn't feel were right, and whatever they were. And the fact that he wants to come to us and work with the players that he has, he will be going into that dressing room and he will be beaming from ear to ear, because whatever we may think, he has never worked with players of that caliber. So the fact that not only be working with players of this caliber, but he's going to have an amount to
competitive transfer budget, should we call it? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say a competitive transfer budget to add to what he's already got. I think he will be a very happy camper. And with someone like Fabio, with his record, barring probably 2 of his acquisitions over the period before he departed us, most of those players are still either in the squad or still have an good intrinsic value to the club. So all in all, for me, I'm looking at this very positively. Yes, I mean, we had that amazing night. I wasn't a great fan of Ange, as most of you know. I thank him for all he's done in that thing, but I couldn't stand to go to another 22 league games watching us lose. It was too much to bear.
100%, Johnny. No, I feel the same. As I say, part of me is just a little bit. I don't know. As soon as you say goodbye to someone, you kind of reflect on whether it was the right thing, and also part of me just the unknown around. I really wanted to find out, as Jim mentioned earlier. I really wanted to see how season 3
new girlfriend turned up,
tweaking that a little bit. But until the new girl comes in, and then you forget about the last one. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm in that transitional phase. And talk about transitional phase, Jim. I know you've got to jump off, mate. Thank you so much for coming on, buddy. What's coming out on Oso Spurs this week, mate, that we can all look forward to?
Thanks. It's been great to be on and good to chat again. So we did an episode today alongside a Brentford correspondent around Thomas Frank. And if perhaps you're not sure, it's worth a listen. There will be some bits in there. And I will say around the injuries is the only thing I'm interested to watch. But Frank had a much smaller squad than the Spurs. But he also didn't have midweek football. So it'll be interesting to see that bit pans up. But it definitely made me feel a lot more respectful of his history, his background, his intelligence, and the idea of giving Frank the keys to Spurs for a few years. My call out would be, let's really unite behind this next guy. He's a decent human being. He's an intelligent man. Let's not go into a season again with those kind of polarized, because the media are going to jump down the next man, just throw it at the first opportunity to say, ha, and kind of create that toxicity of, fans who said Ange should have stayed. Here's some food for you, or vice versa on the other side, and just try wind us all up and get us all against each other. So let's give him time. He's got a squad that is a lot better than 17th, but it's not title challenging. So let's remember that he's got a job on his hands to continue to grow this club, and let's help him do that. Hopefully we've got some good league football, but so we've got that coming out tomorrow. We've got another Brentford podcast joining us for the show. We've got a licensed coach coming on as well to look at the setup of how Frank would like me set up at Spurs and which players would fit in. So those are the main ones, and a couple of finance pods coming up as well. So
sensational stuff, Jim, mate. You're an absolute superstar. You're always so well received on the channel, mate. Obviously by the guests, but also from the chat. So make sure you get over to Oso Spurs, guys. The link is pinned into the chat. Jim, thanks very much, mate. I'll let you jump off and go and see the indoors. Thanks,
guys.
Take care, mate.
Big up, Jim. Take care, mate.
We do have a fourth guy coming in a second. Mark, who's a man who's been a long time sort of DM friend, if you like, and he's coming in a second. I think I've sent him the link. He's just back from his
man. I was saying, where's he going with this?
We've got a super chat from Sava. Thanks, Sava. When fans say a rebuild, do they realise we are 17th? If anything, we're starting from rock bottom. Ange has left us tactically redundant. Thomas Frank, tick, tick, tick. Drew, do you subscribe to Sava's stance on Ange?
It's really hard, right? Because I think the problem with Ange is you need. My understanding is that everywhere he's been, he's had at least top 1-2% of players in their position to be able to make it work, or the drop off of everybody else has been so drastic that he's best. I know he's built teams, but he's been able to build them within the budget, and they've been very competitive. And I think it was just maybe a step too far with Spurs. I think I would have liked to have. I think there was something there. I think if you could have taken the rock and roll football that was me on the edge of my seat wondering how we're not 4-0 up after 20 minutes, and take away the individual mistakes, the naivety of a couple of the players in midfield, which is understandable, when you're playing an 18-year-olds. But, there is his inability to see that, and his inability to change it sooner. I can't knock what Sava's saying. Semantically, do I absolutely agree with it? No, but I mean, me and him could probably chat about it, and we'd probably come to the same conclusion for sure. Like, I'm not going to fight him about it. That's a perfectly reasonable suggestion.
Look,
I would have liked to have said, I would just, based on the rock and roll football of the fast paced stuff, and then you look at the Europa League, I feel like if you'd have added a couple of pieces, there's something there you could have merged together that I think would have looked better than tactically inept. But, we'll never know. So that's just my hypothesis.
I think tactically redundant was the
Right.
There's like slight little tweak. Thank you very much, Sam, for that, mate. Faz Ragbar 4-1 Spurs is saying, I like Frank, but what is the min before we say out? Johnny, you're worried about this as well, aren't you? You're worried about the impatience of Spurs fans and the opportunity.
Well, let's just open the door, and just as he's about to go through it, let's close it. I mean, listen, right? I never wanted Thomas. I never wanted.
Freudian slip there.
Freudian slip. I never wanted Ange Postecoglou. He wasn't even in my top 10. Okay. But when he came in, I decided to give him the chance, right? And despite the fact the euphoria over a 97th minute win over Sheffield United, where I thought, what the hell's going on here? It's like they've just won the league. Those scenes were mad. Those scenes would have been in place in Bilbao for that. And then we had the game against Liverpool, where the referees and the VAR conspired to give us everything we could possibly get. Because had it not been for those two fortunate pieces, we wouldn't have been unbeaten. And this story of the 10 games unbeaten will be past. But what worries me is we'll be 10 games in, and every Ange in fan will be saying, Ange Postecoglou, well, he was unbeaten after 10. Frank's already lost 5. It's coming. And I fear that, whereas Ange managed to get 34 games beaten in the league before he was sacked, I worry that I don't want to see another Nuno where he's gone by October. I think, you have to give the guy time, surely.
Yeah, I don't disagree, mate. I don't disagree. But look, like I said in the first initial instance, I'm warming to him, but it's all largely irrelevant. I don't think it matters, who you have. If you had Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp, would they be able to turn this team into a title-winning team, this squad as it currently looks? I'd make the argument probably not. I think that there needs to be some strengthening. And there's obviously a lot of, we've been speaking about it for the last couple of weeks around, I guess some of the low-hanging fruit, although I don't think it necessarily, I think the only low-hanging fruit that has been really gobbled up at a price point that is like just delectable to the buyer was probably Liam Delap, right, from Chelsea for 25 million or 20 million, whatever it was, 28 million quid. So everybody else seems to be paying top money for good players. We've spoken this morning about Brian and Boomo. I'm going to come to the forward line in a minute, but let's reverse engineer this a little bit. There's a link out this evening, that's coming out of a relatively reliable source from European football, at least, called Fabrice Hawkins, who's a French journalist. and he's saying that Tottenham are interested in having inquired about Roma defender Evan Ndicka. Now, Evan Ndicka is a player that most fans will remember from, I think, 2 summers. Was it under the Conte regime we were looking at Evan Ndicka?
Yeah, he didn't want to come, did he?
He didn't want to come, but Roma are in a lot of financial issues, and that there's a lot of change happening over there. There's a lot of change happening in Italian football, Johnny, with Inter Milan in trouble, AC Milan in trouble. There's a lot of things going on. Juventus as well don't have the financial capacity. There's a lot of
Paratici
before you can buy.
Yeah.
And Fabio Paratici's going to be in there sniffing around.
What do you got? What do you got? What have you got? Oh.
Hey, yeah, you like that Evan Ndicka? I like it, Evan Ndicka. Would you take Evan Ndicka to Tottenham? He's a left-footed, left-sided centre-back, can play off the right, but he's a wonderful player.
We need what we have done for the last 2 years, 2 years at least. We need a left-sided centre-back. That's it. First and foremost, right? Micky van de Ven is not going to be able to play every Champions League game and every Premier League game. Therefore, we're left with Ben Davies. Not happening, right? So we need a left centre-back. I would take him. Preferably, though, I would take Pierre Hincapié because, he might be 50 million euros, but he can play left back, he can play left centre back. And having watched him absolutely destroy, Brazil, he was unbelievable against Brazil in the World Cup game last week. He would be my favourite, but we desperately need that left-sided quality left-sided. There's no point now. I'd rather we didn't sign anyone, Sean, than go into the market and buy someone for down the road. We need 3 to 5. We're not going to get 5, but we need 3 to 5 oven-ready players that are ready to fight in the Champions League.
What would you settle for? Would you settle for?
Is there any
oven-ready? Oh, go on, Drew. Go on, mate.
Well, is there any chance? Am I just dreaming here? Is there any chance of a Jared Branthwaite for cash plus Richie? Because it doesn't look like
Richie's not going anywhere.
No.
Richie's what? Richie's not going.
He's not going anywhere, mate. Why would he
He's
go?
He's a fucking cock block, mate. He's a fucking cock block, that Richie. He's the little brother when your parents are out, right? You're 18 years old and your 15, 14-year-old brother won't fuck off with his mates and skateboard for 5 minutes so you can bring in the bird whilst your parents are out.
I know all about that. Soren.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. When you, all I'll tell you is when you get to the Champions League, you'll be happy to have him, mate. Okay.
Not in place of other people.
You'll be happy to have him, mate. Shithousery, knowing the big game environment. That's what you need, basically. It's true,
mate. What I need, bro, is a Jonathan David. What I need is a Victor Osimhen who rejected Saudi Arabia tonight. I don't want I don't need a Richarlison if Victor Osimhen's at the party.
Oh, he's not going to go. Why would he go? Right, when you got Champions League football and he wants to play in the World Cup.
That's what I'm saying. He's a cock block. He's a cock block.
You want him to be. You should be hoping he's bang on it.
Well, let's find out. We can come up the pitch in a minute. We'll stick to the back line for a second. Mark, welcome to the show, mate. Great to meet you, obviously, overseas over the last couple of months, or last month, mate. Welcome on, mate, making your debut. Make sure everyone in the chat makes Mark feel welcome. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, man. There's not much to talk about, is there? There's not much going on, so I don't know what they really can say, but yeah, it's just crazy as always. Yeah, good to see you, mate. Good to see Johnny and Druzilla.
Good to meet you, mate. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you,
mate. We're just talking about.
I need to change that. Really, it's just Drew, for God's sake. Jesus.
Has that been your nickname, by the way, since you were about 17 years old?
That's my former performance DJ name. So yeah,
there you go. Nice.
Needs to be changed a little bit.
No, it doesn't, mate. Never change, bro. Never change. Mark, I'll bring you in, mate. We were just talking about. We've covered a little bit of the Thomas Frank thing, but I'll certainly give you your chance to sort of say your vibes on him. Ange Postecoglou out of the way, Thomas Frank coming in. Just sort of quickly before we sort of transition into transfer news, views, and clues this evening. How do you feel about the prospect of Thomas Frank coming in, and what did you think about Ange Postecoglou's sacking? Were you okay with it? Were you not okay with it? Have you softened up on that?
To be honest with you, I've been Ange out since probably about November.
Okay.
Johnny probably won't remember, but I went up to him after the Frankfurt game away and went, even old fat Ange got it right tonight. So I've been wanting him out, but I must admit, I softened after. I know it's really bad, and I definitely flip-flopped. And I went back to, I think we should have given the start of the season. I totally get all the arguments about why we shouldn't have done it. It was a heart over head, 100%.
Just quickly, Mark, just for a bit of advice for future podcasts. Other people call you a flip-flop. You never say you're a flip-flop. What you say is, I have flexibility of thought. Okay?
Absolutely.
Other people accuse you, and you bat it away with the flexibility of thought argument.
I'll happily take the badge. I don't care because look, for me, to give me what he gave me on that night in Bilbao, to be with my friends, to have that moment, it was definitely a heart over head. But that's how I roll. Basically, I've been getting abused for months over it. So listen, he's gone. I understand the reason as to why he's gone. It is the right decision. The performances on the pitch in the Premier League were atrocious. He looked complete. For me, he looked out of his depth for a long time. And I know you've said it, Sean. He's a waffler. He's a talker. He says one thing and then he's a flip-flopper himself. He'll say one thing and then he does something completely different. And I saw it from like November time. So I've been calling for him to go since then. Moving on to Frank. Yeah, I mean, for me, he's the best what we can get, really. He isn't. I'd like Glasner if it was a choice, but I don't think that's possible to get him out of that contract. I don't know whether Crystal Palace can be playing in Europe next year. That's up in the air at the minute. I think that it's impossible to get him out of there. That's as a preference. That's who I'd like. Thomas Frank ticks a lot of boxes for me, so I'm totally on board with it. I think with ENIC around, he is the best.
Are you ENIC out?
Again, Sean, I've been doing these things going back a long time with you, and I was always with you that I thought they were the best for the club, and I can see I am ENIC out now. Yeah, it took me a long time to get.
I was never ENIC in. Like, I think the opposite of ENIC out is not ENIC in. I think it's like, for me, I think I'm just anti the inconsistency of the ENIC out movement. I think I've tried to make myself as clear as I can on this. Like, I'm someone that I don't care how you feel, and you shouldn't care how I feel. We're all just like kind of irrelevant observers of other people's success or failure. But when it comes to arguments, debates, I just want to hear consistent logic, and I rarely hear it from people that are embedded in their view. And like I said, when I saw the reaction to Ange being sacked from people that were Ange out a week earlier, that said, "Oh, this is another project failure," you know, ENIC out movement and the change for Tottenham thing, banging the drum and all that stuff. I was like, you're not. This is poorly timed. Like, you're not going to win over the moderates who are open-minded to either way by using any stick to beat him at every opportunity. If they're a little bit more tactical with the timing of their like investment into these things, then I think that they could win over a lot more people that are still not yet with them. And all that stuff might be irrelevant anyway, because like Daniel Levy might be stepping down according to some reports, right? But like it's to me, it's like I've always been on board with a change. I love change, a clean slate, right? A fresh page, new chapter. Call it what you want. I've always been more than willing to do it, but I just want to see what that looks like before I just, because Levy out isn't the solution, Mark. Like Levy out is the problem. Like that's the problem reaction, but the solution is someone else in. So who does that look like? What do they bring to the table? And what are the pros and cons of that? And until I see that, I can't really get on board either way, if that makes sense. You know,
what you've said there is change, and that's what I've been for many years. Is I want ENIC to change in their approach at times. I want them to be a bit more forthcoming with some of them. I know it's not easy. I know we have to work towards budgets. I know that we're not going to cheat our way to a league title like many teams do. I do understand that. But a bit of speculate to accumulate, at times he needed to do that for me, and he just never does it. And I've been banging the drum for change for a long time. I want them to change their approach slightly. increase the wage budget. All of it, it doesn't happen, and this is the problem. This is the problem. Is where I am now. Is they need to go, but like you say, it's not about Levy going. If he steps aside, like they're saying, ENIC are in charge. Like, it's just that he's the figurehead of that. I know he's got a percentage as well, but he is the figurehead. No, things won't change. Like, it's smoke and mirrors as far as I'm concerned. So I get the people rejoicing about the potential of him being moved aside, but realistically, I don't think there'll be major change of how we operate.
Even with a new person. So you're not. It's not just about Levy, by the way. Obviously, it's about, if we need new investment. There's rumors out that some people are saying that like the trust are gonna like shaft him out the way, and that they're gonna put the money in because they can't get it from Staveley or anyone else. And I have no idea, mate. I'm just a fan, right, with an opinion. I don't have insiders. Don't have any of that stuff. But like, I agree with you. I think to a degree, you're never gonna change. Like a leopard doesn't change its spots. But what I would say is, at some point the wage structure has to change. It has to, because inflation will just. If you wait long enough, then $100,000 a week is going to be championship level wages. At some point, right? So like, at some point they're going to have to get on board it. But there's the contrast. So we might pay less in wages than anybody else in the top six, but we've also spent more than basically anybody in the last 5 years, apart from Chelsea and I think one or two of the other clubs, Manchester City maybe. But I think we do spend a lot of money, and that's where the argument pivoted, right? It used to be Daniel Levy never spends the money. Then as soon as he did, it was, well, now he just doesn't pay the wages. And so if we then do that, then where's the argument for the Levy out is then going to pivot to? It's it's going to be something else, right? Because I think that there's an agenda at play by some, and as I say, it's fine. I don't care how you get there. Also, I don't care where you get. I care how you get there. But I also think that they could just time the narrative better, to pick and choose their moments, because sometimes it loses credibility when they're taking credit for Donna Cullen's stepping down, or that kind of shit. I'm like, well, what are we doing here? Like, you come across as it's a little bit childish.
Yeah,
to sort of take claims and credit for things that clearly are nothing to do with you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you.
What do you think, Drew?
I'd say it's all pivot, no patience. Like the two worst run leagues, the two worst run leagues teams in the league are us and Manchester United. And what are the two things that we've got in common? All pivot, no patience. We've gone, and now we've run into a situation where we had a squad that had players that were designed for arguably three slightly different systems, or three and a half slightly different ways of playing. I mean, if you could turn back time and go back to 2019, instead of wasting the near $1 billion that you spent trying to do that, if you could have actually settled on an actual way that you wanted to progress the team. I mean, how much money have you just wasted pissing up the wall on coaches and just on coaching staff? I mean, if you'd have taken actually a big step back and taken a deep breath, the people behind the scenes maybe would have realized that all this change isn't necessarily always a good thing. And I think maybe I'm kind of with Mark. I just would like them to, surely somebody in the background has got to be looking at Daniel Levy and saying, you are the common denominator in the fact that every couple of years we make a change and it isn't you. And yet somehow that change never works, but yet somehow you're always still in charge of it. And I don't know whether it's just been a wake-up call. I've been listening to you the last couple of shows that you've done. People in the the argument that he's made, but the argument that he's made quite a healthy sum of money doing what he's been doing for the last 10, 15, 20 years.
Million quid in 25 years.
Right. And yet the people behind the scenes at Enid haven't
made
really
a penny yet. Yeah.
Right. So maybe people are actually starting to come to their senses and go, look, and maybe you can go back as far as the stadium. And, that was his thing. And that was the thing that was going to progress us. And from a financial perspective, I agree that it has. And I'm not one of those people. I don't mind the fact that the stadium is being used for everything it can be used for outside of match days to bring in revenue that will try and, you know, help the club. But I think maybe they've just had enough. I mean, I'm sure everybody else, you know, there's a lot of people in the chat that are at the end of their rope. I'm kind of the end of my rope. Like, where's the risk appetite? Why can't we? There's an understanding that we're not going to be champions year in, year out, but at least put us up there. At least give us a little bit. You know, we should be doing more with the money that we've got. And it's just been year on year. The analogy that I've got is that Daniel Levy's sitting there trying to wrap a present and he's got a bit of tape on his finger. And all he needs to do is ask somebody to pull the bit of tape off, and he doesn't. And he gets something stuck on the tape, and then something else gets stuck, and then something spills, and then he stands up, and then there's flies all of a sudden in the room. And do you know what I mean? It's this snowball escalation of absolute shit when he could have just asked somebody to help him with the bit of tape that was on his finger.
Can I just challenge this for a second, though? I just want to challenge this for a second, right?
Go on.
Because I feel like the fan base, you know, I love the fan base, but I always say the fan base doesn't know what the fuck they want. I'm not someone I'm never going to say this fan base is tapped or it's fucking stupid or anything like that. Because to each their own, it's an emotional game, right? Like a lot of people, you know, this is their release and they're stressed out about other things. So I feel everyone's need to get shit off their chest and stuff. But when it comes to Daniel Levy, like in terms of like chairman, in the last 5 years, first of all, he has taken a club that was valued at 30 million quid and it's now valued at 4 billion. I know that doesn't satisfy anyone because, you know, like that doesn't change my life. I get it. But like, there's a reason why it's valued at 4 billion is because we're not the shit show that we used to be. You know, we're not the kind of like the kind of volatile team that had a nice stadium that we used to be, that we used to win a trophy every now and again, especially when the kind of the hallmarks changed around what competition looked like. I won't get into that. But in the last few years, he's developed the best stadium in the game, right? Best stadium in the world, maybe second best now, maybe behind Real Madrid. He got us to a Champions League final. I say he, but like his stewardship, if the argument is the buck stops at the top, right? Mm-hmm. He won us a Europa League. We've had some fantastic players in our time at 20. I'm just saying, thank you. I don't know. I don't really like if the barometer, if the comparison, if the relative yardstick in which you're comparing us to is Man City or Chelsea, who were nothing 15, 20 years ago, and now they're like the journey from them from nowhere to heaven was like that. Or you're comparing us to the other 3 or 4 teams that are up there that are chomping at the bit and getting things done, then obviously anyone's going to come out stinking because, like, you're comparing us against the very best.
Right. And I don't think. Oh, go on, Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because you're totally right, but the problem is he wants us to be challenging with those teams, and that's what his expectation is of the managers that come in. It's turning water to wine. You know, he's not giving them the players to actually challenge. And if you can't afford it, that's fair enough. But don't expect someone like Mourinho to come in who wanted Skriniar and give him Joe Rodon.
Okay, but who is it that's sacking the managers? Who is it that sacked? Like, did Pochettino deserve to be sacked? Did he ask to be sacked? Was he twerking for something bigger when he got to the Champions League final? Harry Redknapp was twerking for the English manager position. Yeah. If he had stayed at Tottenham and the English manager position came available, he would leave and go to that. If Pochettino was given the Real Madrid job or the Argentina job, he would have quit there and then, right? Martin Jol, fair enough. There's no excuse for sacking him at halftime. 100% agree with that. But like this notion that, and I don't disagree, by the way. I think it's a fair comment that if the expectation is 4th, then the second that if you finish 5th, that's not a sackable offence. You're missing the target. But are you really giving the guy the tools? 100% agree. But if we're honest, are we like? Would you like to be compared by your wife to a supermodel that lives next door, or would you get pissed off if your wife looked at the next door neighbour that just won the lottery, which is what happened with City and Chelsea, and go, why don't we have a Porsche? Why don't we have a Ferrari? Like, I just sometimes I think that I don't know whether the fan base or if it's the owner or what it is, but I feel like the expectations of our football club are sometimes unreasonable relative to the environment in which it's operating. Whether that's from the fans or whether that's from the owner, I'm not sure. But like there has been sackings that were unnecessary. But sometimes I just think that the fact that we've got the second best stadium in the world does not like necessitate that we should have the very best players in the world playing at it immediately after buying it. Arsenal had, when they moved into the Emirates, you know, it took them 8 years to win their first trophy, I believe, right? So like, I just wonder whether or not it's like it's an expectation versus reality conversation rather than it's abject, it's fucking shit, there's nothing to discuss here. Daniel Levy is a cancer of the football club. Because I think Tottenham Hotspur got to a Champions League final 5 years ago. We've just moved to a new stadium and we've won the Europa League. Like it's not that bad. He also got us to finish second and third in the league, which is the second and third highest finish in our club's history. So I can't understand why it is that there's so much venom. I understand some, but the level of venom towards him is a little bit over the top to me.
Yeah, I don't. He's obviously done a lot of good things as well. Like it's not all bad. And if people can't see that, then I don't know. I don't know what they're seeing. But of course, he's done some good things. The stadium, like Drew was saying, like I don't care whether we've got Beyonce there, as long as the money is spent on the team. He says that he's doing that. I don't know, Sean. You're the finance guy. To me, on the outside,
to answer that question directly, I think yes, it is. It clearly is. Like the 5 years before we moved into the stadium, our average spend was £13 million a year. Now, last 5 years since we moved into the new stadium, it's over £100 million a year. Right, so there's like a 5 or 6 times increase in our spend. I think what is also a fact, though, is that £50 million in the last 2 years has been taken from the club and bought property with it for various things like the hotel and things on the high road. So like there's I'm just being reasonable here. I'm not going to sit here and defend the indefensible and say that things aren't happening that are. 50 million quid has been taken out of the club in the last 2 years for property investment. That's a fact, right? And that is, whether that's comfortable or uncomfortable, that's just the reality of the situation. Sorry, Mark, I interrupted you.
No, I was just saying, yeah, as long as the money is spent on the pitch, and as I said, I bow down to your superior knowledge on that, whether it is or not. I'm not a finance guy, so I don't really understand the ins and outs of it. I get the basics of people saying that he spends a lot of money, but I do come back to the wages. And I know what you're saying, but we need to punch higher, mate. We need to punch higher.
100% we do.
You know, I want to sign youth players. I want to bring them through. We're at a point now. We're back in the Champions League. We need ready now, off the peg players, and to pay them decent wages. I'm not talking 250 grand a week. I'm talking level with Son. What's he on, Sean? 180, 200.
Sonny's on 190. Yeah.
Yeah, we've lost Kane. We've lost Perisic. We've lost Hugo Lloris. We've lost players who were on high wages. We now need to start to get a few back. That's how you move up the levels. You know.
No, I don't disagree, and that's why I can't disagree with that. It's 100% the stumbling block, and I think we saw tonight. We briefly touched on Evan and Dicker. I mean, I think Romero are paying him significant money, not outside of our wheelhouse, by the way. Like I think he's on 130. He's a top class centre back. I love that. Love the way he shoulders people. But someone like Brennan Buemo, whatever, he is someone that apparently, he's on 42, 44 grand a week at Brentford, and he's looking for closer to 200 grand. And apparently, from what I've heard, again, just reading and stuff online, that Tottenham have kind of come in and said, or that there's some sort of intention with Thomas Frank saying, if I'm coming in, I'd love it if you can go and get Brian and Buemo, and yet Manchester United have offered him, essentially as close to 200 grand as he wants, right? So sort of similar to that. And I don't think Tottenham are going to do it. But then you have the argument of like, well, should Brian and Buemo be getting 200 grand a week? How many players? Is Brian and Buemo really a 200 grand a week player? He's a very good player, but is he a better player than Prime Sonny? Is he a better player than than players that get paid 150 grand a week? I'm not sure if he's just getting there, getting a little bit above his station. Like, and if so, like, I'm all for raising this. I insist that Tottenham break the transfer barrier this summer. I've said it for the last 7-8 months. There's no excuse why we can't get a club's highest earner this summer. But Brian Mbeumo, I don't think he deserves 200 grand a week. It would be different if he was on a free transfer. But you're paying 60 million quid for his services. He's a good player, but 200 grand a week. Drew, what's your thoughts, mate?
I mean, is that inflation? I mean, when did Sonny sign his last contract, and what was that for? You know, I mean, you got to pay a premium nowadays. He's Premier League proven. Who's the next guy? If we are in agreement that we probably need another right winger, and I am in agreement, I'm in that boat. Who's the next guy in line, and what is he asking? Because that's your, no, he might not be worth it. I mean, a lot of players, a lot of these guys aren't worth a lot of what they're being paid, but it's just the name of the game, isn't it? If we're in a situation where you've got to spread it around a little bit, then no, probably I wouldn't go as far as start paying the guy that much. But my understanding is Spurs have been pretty clever in the past with offering a slightly, I say clever in the Tottenham stratosphere. I don't know how clever that actually is, but we've kind of topped up players' wages is by paying maybe bonuses and things like that. So I don't know. I think he's he knows what he thinks he's worth. So does his agent. He's floating it about. I could probably end up seeing it becoming somewhere in the region of about 160, 170 with something in the background. But no, I don't necessarily think that he's worth that. But we've got to be, I think we've got to be careful if he becomes available. I don't know really who else is out there that kind of fits the need or requirement right now. His relationship with Frank helps a lot. It would also, I think, push Johnson. So I like the signing, and I think you just got to pay what, at some point within reason, you've just got to pay what people are asking, Oh
yeah, I mean, but that's a slippery slope, though, isn't it? That is a slippery slope, right? If you just
who's the next guy? I mean, let's just say we definitely need a right winger. Who's the next guy you go for?
Next guy I go for, or next guy that's probably a candidate? I think the next candidate is probably Tyler Dibbling. I think that's where Tottenham will probably go to, and I'm not okay with that, by the way, because I've said for a few weeks now that to me, there's some positions on the pitch where I'm okay if this club invoke their profiling, right? We need a homegrown, we need a club trained for the Champions League squad roster. We need someone that's under the age of 21, whatever, all that shit. I'm okay if that happens in an area of the pitch where we're already pretty solid and that you need to go in that direction to make it work. I'm okay if Tottenham were to go and get a Kenny Tete on a free transfer or a Kyle Walker-Peters or an Aino, someone like that, because we're already solid in the fullback role, right? We've already got 3 fullbacks. We do need a 4th, but we've got 3 top centre-backs and one of them can play equally well on both sides, in my opinion. But if you're going to tell me that we're going to get a 6, and that 6 also has to be under the age of 23, preferably homegrown, and ideally someone that came through the club or whatever else, then I'm like, nah, sorry, it's too important a position, and we're too weak in our general depth in that role right now. And I think you can make the same argument for our wingers. I don't really want to see something like us go after Tyler Dibbling and pay top money because the club are looking for youth-centric model. Sorry, we've already got. I think I said this to Johnny earlier on the phone. Johnny was saying to me, we've got to go and get Brian Mbeumo if we can, right? Or he wants Manor Solomon. He would like to see Manor Solomon come back to the club. I'm saying, well, let's just figure that one out. And I'll actually ask you guys about Manor Solomon in a second once I finish my my monologue here. When it comes to wingers, you've already got Brennan Johnson, Mikey Moore, Jamie Donnelly potentially, Sonny, possibly Matisse Tell, depending on what happens there. You got Decky that can play out on that side. You've got Hup Tu and spit on that Yang Min
Hyuk.
Yang Min Hyuk. There you go.
Right,
we've got Odebear, and that's 8 wingers already. 8 wingers already, right? And then
What do we
Manos
think about
Sullivan's
Sonny?
ninth.
We think Sonny's really going to be around?
I don't think he's going to go before the close of this window, which is the main catalyst for why Saudi Arabia want him, because they want to get ready for the Club World Cup. So probably not. But
Saudi Arabia have wanted him since 2019, if reports are to be believed. And there's 3 or 4 clubs that are literally just waiting for the guy to say, yes, I'll accept a deal to go to Saudi. Like, he's not really he's not wanted the project. They're waiting for him to say yes to a project. And then apparently bids are coming in. So it's just whether, I don't know. I mean, do we want to romanticize and have him sunset his career at Spurs? I mean, with the best will in the world, I think we're just kind of, I don't know. I think we're kind of past that, aren't we? Don't we need to move on? Like, if he wants to stay, then fair enough.
I'm saying that it's the perfect time for him to go. There's no better time than right now. He's not going to wait around. We're not going to win a trophy in all likelihood in the next year, right? Next season, we're not going to win a trophy. So isn't it a better story, like, for the movie of his life?
Exactly.
To finish as Tottenham captain, lifting the trophy the last time he kicked the ball.
That's why
I'm going to get your take on that. Sorry, I'll get your takes on that in a second. But I also want to ask you about Manos Sullivan. But just to finish the point, so we got 9 wingers rather, already at the club. Plus, you can put Richalison out there. That's 10 wingers already at the club. And then, like, we might be walking into a manager who, when he goes to a back 3, also wants 3 in the midfield at some point, and so he doesn't use wingers; he uses 2 forwards. And so I'm just sitting there going, like, what are we doing here? We're so oversaturated within mediocrity in a key area of the pitch. So if Tottenham were to go and get a Tyler Dibbling, we've already got Tyler Dibbling in Wilson Odebear. We've probably already got him in a Matisse Teller if we make that one firm, right? So I just want to, if we're going to go and improve on a winger, it has to be for a fucking winger, not someone that might be a winger. You know, that's where I'm at. I want to hear your thoughts, guys.
The one thing I would say about the Mbeumo deal is that if it is Frank and if it is Mbeumo, then he's played for Frank as a striker, as a right winger, as a right-sided 10, and as a right wing back. So if you are going to try and implement, yet again, if we're going down the road of, you know, having to implement new systems, then kind of what better guy to implement a system or help to be on the field, know exactly where everybody else needs to be, and kind of not necessarily be the captain, but be that commanding presence that can be like the manager on the field. Like, who, as a manager, what you would want that when you what better way to start to implement your system that had somebody that's been there and done it for 100 games, 150 games. So maybe the 200 grand a week is kind of part premium. Like, hey, you're not just getting me, you're getting the fact that I know, you know, almost like American football. I know this guy's playbook. I'm this guy's kind of quarterback in this regard. I can tell everybody everything that they need to know and wherever they need to be. So therein lies a bit of a premium, I think. So, you know, I don't know what Mark's take on that is.
Well, with Mbeumo, I would like him, but I think it's one of those old classics. Whenever a new manager's coming in, he's going to go to his old club and get this player, that player. We had it with Conte Inter Milan. We did get Perisic, but he was on a free. It never really happens, to be honest with you guys. Like, they tell you, like, I think when they negotiate, they say, you can come, but you can't take this player, that player. And that happens. So I don't think, as much as I would like him at Tottenham, I think he was the 4th highest goal scorer in the Premier League last season behind Salah, Haaland and Isak. Although he was on pens. He was on pens for Brentford.
I guess the only reason I'm kind of giving it more credence maybe than I would initially is just because he said he wants to go. Yeah. Brentford have already sort of said, all right, here's a price. Yeah. So it's kind of more realistic than saying, let's go Cole Palmer, 100%. You know?
100%. It is realistic. He is leaving Brentford this summer. They said that at the back end of last season. They're open to offers. I think he'll end up at United. I think it's probably people putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 5. Frank's coming to Tottenham. And Boomer's on the way out. He's his player. We need wingers, supposedly.
Well, do you think he fits? Do you think he fits in the United system? Because doesn't he play like a 5-3-2 kind of weird?
I don't think they care. I think they just sign players for signing players.
Sign players to sign players. Yeah.
So it's
I
one of
don't
them.
know.
I like Diblin, but I wouldn't want Diblin at Tottenham right now. That's the problem. I like Tyler Diblin. I think he's exciting, but the money you'd have to pay to get him from Southampton, we need to spend in other areas, guys. It's the same with Tell. Tell showed me nothing. I went to most games where he played, and he showed me absolutely nothing that I think we should be spending 30 million, let alone whatever it is. I just don't think we should spend our budget on him. Maybe he'll come good in the future, but we need the here and now. I'll go back to it. We need ready-made players now. That's the problem for me.
100%. I think that therein lies the problem. And like I say, it's not as simple as intent, right? Like you have to sort of factor in the relative draw of Tottenham right now. Do you want to join Tottenham? Let's look at Ray and Cherky, right? Tottenham were interested in him. Tottenham had several conversations with the agent. The agent was like, okay, yeah, we'll hear you out. I think at one point it almost progressed, according to reports, towards Lyon. And then as soon as Manchester City poked their nose in, there's only one winner. The same with Liverpool, right? I hate to say it, but I think it's probably true that for the most part, it's probably only one winner with Arsenal as well, unless you're going for a place where you can guarantee a starting position and where Arsenal can't. For example, if you're going for a specific right winger at Arsenal, that guy's going to have to go and play second fiddle to Saka, and whereas at Tottenham he's going to have to compete with Brennan Johnson, right? So it's not as big a problem. So not only do you have to compete on the salary, which is a problem at Tottenham, but you also have to compete for most of the players that we're looking for that are of that higher ilk. You have to compete with the guys that have the draw of a higher frequency of success. And Manchester United, as much as they're in the shit, they're still Man United. It doesn't matter how full Man United. It doesn't matter how far they fall. They're Manchester. This is Manchester United. Right? They are always going to have that fucking draw, right? So I just feel like, are we fishing in the same pond as those teams? And if so, will we ever win? And if not, then do we have to lower our expectation around the caliber of player that we can sign?
I think we just have to be a little bit more clever about it. I mean, I take last season as a smack in the mouth. And at the moment, we're a boxer sitting in the corner and we're trying to work out whether we can get our bearings back and whether we can go out for the next round and whether we've got to consolidate the next round in our position and maybe go out a little bit defensive, or whether we can go out and try and put the guy down. For me, I would rather be in a position where we realise that we were in 17th position. We weren't doing amazing. I know we qualified for the Champions League, but, I think we're all in agreement that the squad isn't, very few squads can go on 4 fronts, let alone 3. A double's pretty rare. I think we run the risk of trying to be the team that just wants to, I'd love to be in the Champions League every year, but the problem is, unless you're actually going to go for the Champions League, you've already written off the potential of a piece of silverware. I wouldn't be opposed to going into next season. I mean, all right, we're in the Champions League. Great. You got to give it a go. But I mean, do we really need to give it a go? Would we not be better off consolidating? I'd be happy with another 6th place getting into the Europa League, because I think it's genuinely a cup we could continue to win, very much like Seville, did for 3 or 4 seasons.
100%.
Then you're starting to get people that go, hang on a minute. Well, they are maybe on the verge of winning something every year, like a couple of good, a good FA Cup run. You bleed the youngsters in the Carabao, a half decent FA Cup run. You win the Europa League and you finish 6th or 7th to get back into the Europa League to maybe win it again. So people go, hang on a minute, they could potentially win. And then you've got 2 or 3 seasons or 3 or 4. I mean, this is an ideal world, but if you were to win it back to back, or you win it 2 times in 5 years or 3 in 6, something like that, you've got players then that have won and know what it takes to win, so that then when you take the step up to the Champions League, then maybe you've got a bit more about you. You've got players that have been there and done it. Right now, we're kind of throwing lambs to the wolves constantly, and then we're like, well, why isn't this working? Why aren't we? Why doesn't? Well, because these guys have barely got European football in their legs, and now we're asking them to take on the elite, and now it's a bit of a basket case.
I think it's a fucking. I think that therein, what you just said, by the way, is a bang on the money plan that I would love. And welcome to the show, Connor. I'm going to introduce you in a second. I'd absolutely love it if we as a fan base could be okay with something like that. This season, we're going to have a little bit of fun in the Champions League, right? Like, let's see what we do, but don't go in thinking that we're going to smash Bayern Munich or PSG or whoever we get drawn against. Bearing in mind we're in tier 3, so we're going to get some monsters in every game. If we somehow manage to squeak through into the sort of 9th to 24th spot and then get a decent draw in the playoff, then just sort of go for it, obviously, right? But if the bar here is to go deep in the Champions League, otherwise frank out, then it's a nonsense thing. In the league,
it's somewhat incumbent for the club itself to come out and give us some sort of statement. And this is the problem, and this is why I guess, and not all my vitriol, I'd like to feel like I'm pretty level-headed, but this is why Levy kind of gets some of my vitriol, is because he says one thing. I mean, we've all said, Ange said one thing out of one side of his mouth and then something out of the other. And this Levy, he gives us the impression that he wants that, but then he doesn't ever seem to back it up. And that's my problem with him, Sean.
He's like the father that says, next summer, lad, I'm going to buy you a new car for your 18th birthday. And then he buys you a moped. It's, how can you go and pull the birds? Just to finish that off, I think that Aston Villa are going to walk the Europa League next season unless there's mass changes there because of their problems. I think it's a low-hanging fruit. So I would be absolutely fine if next season Thomas Frank got us to 6th. And then in 27-28, we had some more opportunity in the Europa League, at least in its current guise. We'll find out whether those rules change. Connor, I want to welcome you to the show. A lot of people that are watching. There's 1,700 people, by the way, guys. Smash the granny out of the like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe. Please get over to Spurs Diehards TTID. I put that in the chat. Also, all of you guys, I'm sure, have got various Twitter handles. But Levynomics, Connor, he's someone that's. I think Connor is fair. I won't speak for you. I'll let you go here. But you're someone you're an accountant. You've got some background in finance, and you wanted to come on. But also you lean Levy out clearly from the posts and things that we've shared, right? You're someone that's frustrated with the owner, right?
Yeah. So chartered accountant, as you said. I do lean Levy out, but I'm a more recent Levy out convert. So I'm not one of these that's been Levy out since 2008 or whatever it's sort of been. Probably the last 4 years or so for me. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt with the stadium. Gave them a couple of years in the new stadium to really deliver in terms of starting to dine at the table, as we were told, and I think given that hasn't really come to fruition, I think it was really Daniel Levy's statement with the most recent set of financials that really triggered me to set up the Levynomics account. And if you go on there, you'll see a lot of stuff which is quite in depth in terms of the financials and criticising the ENIC model.
What's your? I mean, we've only got sort of 15 minutes, mate, as your first intro on the show. I want to bring Mark back in here as well. I think Drew's gone for a piss or something, but so I'll let you guys sort of take on the next few minutes together. Starting with you, Connor. What's your take on, again, not to get stuck into the weeds today, I'll do a show with you another time where we can get stuck into the numbers. But what's your take on the ownership right now? Are you very much hoping that this guy Charrington is going to come in, ruffle some feathers? And are you a little bit concerned? Like, I mean, I'm not concerned by it. I'll deal with it whatever happens. But I just worry whether or not Thomas Frank is walking into an unclear, opaque environment above him, and that not knowing what that looks like might also bring confusion, obfuscation around what sort of money he has to spend. Johnny was saying earlier before, I don't know where Johnny went. I think he jumped off, or his camera's screwing up or whatever, but he was sort of suggesting to me that from what he's heard, that we've got a competitive budget to work with. But all of that stuff is up in the air if you don't really know who it is that's sort of who's got the reins above him, right? So what's your take on that, mate?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, look, it's moving daily at the moment, isn't it? I think in terms of the rumours around takeovers and Levy's going to get stepped aside and Donna Cullen was stepped aside, or did she retire? And you know, I think there's Lee McQueen, the other night on Last Word on Spurs, was obviously talking about how he's got some info about Levy being stepped aside. And I think the latest rumour today was Malaysian investment, wasn't it? Which obviously I suspect you covered at the start of the show. But look, I think on Charrington, obviously he was put in post in March 2024. Funnily enough, I've actually had some dealings with Charrington in my own professional career. So
do you like nice guy?
One of the really top guy actually, and really switched on. And you know, he spent all of his career in New York and more recently Bahamas, but he's a right English gentleman, right, in terms of the way he comes across. So I think all of the signs are there that there is some inward investment coming. Whether that's going to be minority or a full takeover, and what that's going to look like, no one really knows. And I think you can take a lot of the in the know stuff with a pinch of salt. But I think what Charrington has been brought in to do is to add some proper credentials to the board, and I suspect he has been part of the push for hiring Vinny. You know, I think if you look at Tottenham's board, it was broadly unchanged for about 15 years in terms of having Donna Cullen, Levy and Matthew Collicott on the board. And I think everyone would recognise that that board needed strengthening regardless of whether there was a takeover coming or not, or any investment coming. But I think the signs are there, but you know, who knows what exactly that looks like. And then I think on your second point about Frank, look, it's interesting. All of the signs in the finances, in my view, and as you say, Sean, I won't go into it now because we'll cover it in detail in another show, is if we want to spend money, we can spend money, right? In terms of that, we've got the PSR headroom, we've got the UEFA squad cost control headroom, we've got cash is dwindling, but we're still in a healthier cash position than basically every other club in the league. So it is there if the owners want to match that ambition. So let's see what that ends up looking like.
And just quickly before I come to Mark, are you on board the Thomas Frank signing? And you know, or were you someone that was angry with the board for making the change with regards to Ange?
No, I am on board. Funnily enough, I mean, I was accused of being a Levy-inner actually on X in response to my post, just making some arguments for Frank. I mean, I have to say some of the flip-flopping, in my view, in the fan base over Ange has been interesting to see on X, and indeed, I made the point. I've been reading a lot of comparisons about the amount of points that Frank has collected at Brentford versus what Ange has collected at Spurs, and I think everyone has forgotten that Frank is managing Brentford. You know, right. This is a team that are in the fourth tier of English football in 1998. So the fact that we're even making a comparison between Tottenham and Brentford sort of reflects where Ange took Tottenham last year and how well Frank has done at Brentford, in my view.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I say, I was a little bit uninspired by Thomas Frank. I was like, if it's not that I'm an Ange sycophant in any way, shape, or form, but I think what he did achieve was a momentous thing, and football is about moments. And as much as I always ask people on this channel to respect the fact that I try to I'm like a protractor. I try to see things from every angle, and people presume if I'm not saying what they want to hear, then that means I'm something I'm not. I'll quite happily jump across the fence in many different ways. But with Ange, I think that emotions, he sort of calculated the emotional investment that people have in the football club, and I think he recognised and realised something that we, I don't know how old we're all probably similar-ish ages, within maybe sort of 10 years of each other. I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see if we can do something as big as that again in the second half of our life, right? So we have to respect it, but I do worry a little bit. I'm fully on board, Thomas Frank. I fully am, but it's a whole different. I don't think he's got the kind of magical words in the right order to inspire. So, like, if you were to offer me a chat, like a final, if I'm entirely honest, like Super League, and this is where I bring you in, Mark, right? Super League, Super Cup, final. is his first game, right? And if I'm entirely honest, if the Super Cup was being played this week, I'd much rather have Ange been in charge of it, because I think that he would be able to find the magical words to get that extra yard. I don't know if Thomas Frank has got that. I think that he's more of a scientist, right? He's more looking for, he's sort of calculating things in a different method than how Ange works. Maybe Ange is more of a recipe. Maybe he's more of an artist, and maybe Frank is more of a scientist. But Mark, I want to come to you, mate. Just the penultimate question for us all here is: what do you see happening in the Super Cup? It is his first game. It's a monster. Do you think that if we get absolutely like shafted, do you see there being like a pivot? By the way, I asked this question earlier around the are you happy with Frank? It's now had 2,000 votes. 78% of people are Frank in, essentially, right? Or at least in the initial instance, which is surprising given what I've read on Twitter. But I think people are warming up to the idea. I certainly am. But do you think that will change if we get pumped 8-9-0 by or 6 or whatever 3-4-0 by PSG and we don't have a sniff on the next day? If I do a poll, will it be like 60% Frank out, or do you think people will give him the leeway?
You're saying some of our fans are quite reactionary.
Nah, I'm not saying that.
Well, you can't on one game, against the best team in Europe, the best team I've seen, to be honest, since Barcelona. The way they play football,
unbelievable. It's astonishing that the best thing they could have done was to sell Mbappe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The way they play, we're in a world now of football. I find it quite boring. I don't know if you watched the England game yesterday. It's so like pass it here and you go there. It's like a game of chess. With them, it's going back to the early 2000s, 90s, where players are running and taking on their man. They're a great team. So, look, maybe we'll get absolutely walloped by them, but you can't write off Thomas Frank after one game. You're pretty stupid if you are doing that. You might not say it, Sean, but I'm saying it. You are stupid if you're writing off Thomas Frank.
No, I would say that. Of course you are. Yeah. Just to answer your question, sorry, just to give the other side. Someone said, "What happens if we win?" I would imagine if we win that game, then it will be 99%.
He gets a 10-year contract.
Yeah. Give him the world. Give him the stadium.
One advantage we've got in that game is the fact that they come back. They're obviously at the World Club Championships, and they'll come back. If they go all the way, they'll literally just be back in training. So we've got that advantage where there will be days back in. But look, let's just go and enjoy it. Hopefully we don't get absolutely walloped. Maybe we can win. We can win it. You can win that game. It's a one-off game.
I think the history of that cup suggests that Europa League winners win that tournament by a 75% ratio. So for every 4 Europa, someone told me this. I haven't verified, but for every 4 Super Cups, the Europa League Cup winners or the UEFA Cup winners win it 3 times out of 4.
It used to be, and I picked Johnny up on this on Twitter, so maybe that's why he vanished. Joking. It used to be the cup. It used to be the Cup Winners' Cup. So Arsenal, when we stopped giving Arsenal stick about it, because they have actually played this game. I look back on the history books. Arsenal did actually play. I think it was in 1992 after they won the Cup Winners' Cup. Could have been 93. They lost over 2. It was a 2-legged affair. They lost to AC Milan, 2-0 at home, 2-0 away. So. Yeah, look, of course we've got a chance. Of course we have a chance. And I don't want to take up too much time. I know you're finishing at 5:30. We have a chance.
No, we've got 7:35 is the hard finish, guys, and then I'm going to hand over to Saba, guys. So if you guys, there's still 1,600 people here. It's been mad numbers. It was over 2,200 people here at some points. It was, I think that's a record for the show. So really appreciate everyone hanging around. And like I say, in about 8 minutes' time, we are going to hand over to Football Heritage. I want to get sort of quick answers on the Super Cup, and then I've got one last question for all 3 of you. So Drew, I'll come to you, mate. Super Cup. Do you think that we've got any chance? Do you think it's a fucking baptism of fucking fire? for Thomas Frank? Be old T fit TF, or what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Little bit of both. I'm still right. I still don't want to jinx it. I'm still hesitant. We're sitting here talking like he's looking through the door, and you know what it's like with this bloody club. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be Marco Silva. And I was kind of hoping. I was kind of hoping.
If
I was
Marco
really
Silva
hoping.
rocks up for Tottenham, I'll probably be leaving out if I'm entirely honest.
I was really hoping Johnny was still around, because I was going to rib him a little bit and liken him to Craig David, because he seems to want a manager every different day of the week. On Monday, do you know what I mean? On Monday, it's Areola, a little bit of Frank on Tuesday, a little bit of
he wasn't
Glasgow
chilly on Sunday. He was looking for 4 more.
all over the place. But no, big up. Do you know what? I think there's a little part of me that hopes that the big boys from the Champions League have still got their feet up a little bit. A couple of them might still be on holiday. And they come in with kind of a half, not a half-assed team, but do you know what I mean? I think we've got a good chance of getting it. So we shall see. One last thing that I do want to say is that I want to congratulate you. I want to send some memberships into the chat, because you passed 32k this morning, mate. And I know we don't usually do,
thanks,
2s and 3s.
You haven't got to do the memberships, mate.
I do. No, too late. Too late.
Fuck it, mate. What are you doing?
Love you, buddy.
Drew,
Love you, buddy.
Mate, you're the best,
32k, everyone. Smash that like for Sean Butler and 32k. Smash that like. Come on, Sam.
Thank you, mate. Thank you, mate. You're a legend, Drew. You're the best. You're the super mod, right? You're an absolute legend. And guys, if you have just received a membership, then please send your thanks to Drew. Mate, you haven't got to do that, mate. What are you doing?
I do.
Appreciate
mate.
you, buddy.
I really do.
And guys, we're going to do a members phone-in show priority session tomorrow. So if you guys want to, I've just seen another one coming. Seen Drew's.
Blaine's just rocked up with one as well.
Blaine, never to be undone.
Never to be undone. Love
guys,
you,
there's 30 new members. I'm absolutely super generous. Thank you, mate. Drew, you don't need to do that. Blaine, you haven't got to do that either, mate. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And if you have just received the membership, then you have access, primary access, priority access to the member show tomorrow evening. So please come on and give me your thoughts on why I'm a donut. But Drew, thank you so much, and Blaine, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. They're very nice, you guys.
Love you, buddy.
I want to. I'll give you the final say on the Super Cup before I ask everyone one final question. Super Cup thoughts?
Yeah, consistent with the guys, really. I think we've got a small chance based on the fact that I think there is a chance that PSG will have their feet up a bit. I think the Club World Cup. I think they've also got to take 3 weeks off because of the UEFA rules about giving players a break or whatever. So I think those two things together, hopefully we might be a little bit sharper given our pre-season. Let's see. So I'm optimistic.
I'll stick with you, mate, for the last question of the night. It's the way I always try and round off. Transfer dream world scenario. Dream world, but within reality. What are you looking for in terms of spend? What do you expect in terms of net spend? And you can I just throw some names out there if you want to give me the method of your working. I don't care about the answer, but show me your working. Who do you see leaving? Who do you see joining? Who would you like to see joining? And so the net spend of that, and does that include a transfer record? And does that include a new club's highest earner? And I'll give the same answers to same question to Drew and to Mark.
Yeah, good question. I mean, look, the answer of what I want and what I think is achievable versus what I think will happen is different. I think, it's been a slow start to the window given all the uncertainty, obviously, but there is still a lot of time left. I suspect we will spend net somewhere around 100 million would be my guess in terms of what we will spend. Some of that will be what's already gone on Danso, probably. I suspect they will make Tel permanent.
You think? At what price point is that going to be at? Like 30, 25, 30, that sort of level?
Yeah, I think it's about the 30 million mark. I think they'll negotiate that.
Are you okay with that, by the way? Are you okay with that one?
It's a hard one, isn't it? I mean, I don't think he showed enough, particularly during this loan spell, but he wouldn't be the first player where it's taken a while to
acclimate.
to settle in, and he's very, very young and he's very raw. I think he's going to be a talent, right? But
Damsgaard, right? Connor, look at Damsgaard, right? People wrote him off in his first season. Brentford fans are like, nah, give him a chance. Tottenham fans aren't that patient, but Brentford fans are. And Damsgaard's been a baller in the last year, right?
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
I have faith. I think that Matisse Tell showed me something in those 6 months. I like him. I'm happy if he comes in. I'm fine with it. Absolutely fine with
I
it.
think the one thing he definitely has shown is a fantastic mentality. Everything about his attitude and mentality is top. I think, it's one of those. If the squad and the team wasn't crying out for experience and crying out for really established players to join, I think most people would be happy for Tell to join. And I think the worry with Tell is how much of the budget is he taking for another sort of young, promising talent. And I think people want to see experience. So I think that's the challenge with Tell. Look, I think the players. Sorry, I know you've got to finish very quickly, so I'll be quick. I think the players that I'd like to see, I think we need somebody who can cover left centre back and left back, which is squad depth. So that's someone like a Hanko. Then I'd like to see Eze probably as the marquee signing, just because he's so talented and can fill in a couple of different positions, and I think he would be. You're going to be talking. I think his release clause is 60, 70 million,
68 million. It has to be paid up front.
Yeah, which is going to be an issue for us, obviously. And he'll be asking for big wages. I don't think we'll get someone topping Son's wages if Son does indeed stay. So I think the highest wages we'll bring anyone in on is sort of that 150 to 200 mark. And then we need a proper number 6.
You don't think we're going to break the record for wages?
No? I don't think so. I don't think unless they perhaps renew Romero.
Connor, if that doesn't happen, like, don't get me wrong, if we sign someone like an Mbeumo, like 3-4 players of Mbeumo's level, and they're all on 170, 80, I'll tolerate it. I might be in the mud because I promised everyone that I think that there's a club's highest earner coming. I'll even be okay if it's Christian Romero that gets 220 grand a week to stay or whatever, right? But if it's like, if we sign players, I've got no problem with players like Hugo Larsson. I've got no problems with that. Or Victor fucking Frohold. I've got no problem. I think they're good players. But if we end up going in that direction again right now, it's the wrong fucking time to be doing more of the same. And
I agree.
I'll go fucking apoplectic if I'm honest. But
I agree. I think the best chance we've got actually of breaking that 200k if Son is on is Romero. If Romero has a change of heart and renews, I think he will go on more than 200.
Nice.
And then
go on. Sorry, finish point, mate. Sorry, I thought you.
No, and then I was just going to say, look, if there was the ability to hijack that Mbeumo one, obviously that's an obvious one with Frank coming in, and I think our front three clearly needs strengthening. So, look, I think it's a number 6. It's Eze, it's squad depth at the back, and then some sort of marquee signing. You'd hope in the attacking positions, but let's see.
Love that, mate. Hey, brilliant fucking debut from you guys. Get over to Levynomics 1882 on Twitter, and Connor's going to come back on this week for me and him are going to have a download, a tete-a-tete, I guess, on the finances as well. So look forward to that one. Mark, I'll come to you, mate. What's the score for you? Same question, right? Who's coming in? Who's leaving? Do you think there's going to be a new transfer record or club size turner?
Are you asking me dream world or what I actually think?
Well, realistic dream world, like realistic dream world.
I'd love Believer at Brighton, but I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's going to happen. So yes, scrap that one. I think maybe if Romero leaves, someone like a Braithwaite at Everton, I can see coming in. I throw this one out there. I don't want him. I've just got a feeling, and it would break the wage structure as well, Sean. So you'd get that. I've just got a feeling we might try and get Rashford on loan. I don't want him, but it's just a feeling that I've got. Yeah, I'll throw that one out there. I would like Mbeumo, if that's what Frank wants, because he fits his system. He's a key player for him. So if that's what he wants, that's who I want as well. Connor's already said it, and I've wanted him since he was at QPR. Would be Eze or however you want to pronounce it.
He would be the club's highest record, right? He'd be the transfer record.
68 million, yeah. 60, isn't it 60 up front and then 8 in add-ons? They're saying, aren't they, for the So
Okay, I'm happy with that. I mean,
yeah, that's for me.
And I think he'd also come in as being he'd be a plus 200 grand a week signing. You know.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one that I want, and that's the one that I hope we get. So
he gets me out of the fucking mud, mate. He gets me out of the mud. One foul through. I hit that box like I told you. I fucking told you. Appreciate you, Mark, mate. You made your debut. I'm going to get you back on as well this week as well, mate. If you're up for it, mate.
Yes,
You've been great.
Absolutely,
Someone's phone or computer is like scratchy and noisy. Mark, I'll just put you on mute. It might be you, mate. I'll put you on mute for 2 seconds, Mark, if that's okay, mate. Thanks for coming on there, buddy. You're absolute legend. Drew Zilla, last but by absolute no means. And by the way, guys, stay with us. Right, there's 1,300 people still here. Stay with us. We're going to finish in 3 minutes, and then I'm going to send you over to Sav's channel. So you've got to stay here. And when you go, I want you to say Spurs Talk Show fucking raid and include the fucking in however you want to spell it. Drew Zilla, what's going on, mate?
Realistic. I mean, realistic dream world, and I think this is realistic if we had real aspirations and got our balls out. Eza and Bumo, Wharton, one of Hincape, Hansko, or Boskagli, Vanderson, and then out Bissouma, son, Verno, who's already gone, and Richie.
Sorry. You're calling them out too quickly for me. Say them again.
Sorry. So Eza and Buemo, so new left side, new right side. Adam Wharton, new 6.
Yeah.
Left-sided centre-back, either Hincape, Hansko, or Boskagli from PSV.
Hansko's gone to Saudi. Boskagli's on a free, but I think he's basically going to go. Boskagli's on a free, but he's going to Monaco, I believe. Who's the other one you said?
Well, you just shut on my list, didn't you? Hincape.
Hincape's available, but okay.
Hincape. And then Vanderson as a backup left back. Oh, right back.
Right back. Vanderson's fucking class, mate. I fucking love that guy.
But that's sort of dream world, but with an element of actually we're going to go for it and give it some. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's doable. I think if you, I get the situation with Eza, but again, this was sort of dream world, get your balls out. I think if you offered a little bit more and structured it differently, you could get it without having to pay the 60 up front. If you said, all right, we'll sweeten the deal and we'll go up to 73, 75, 100%. 78 with some add-ons, and then we'll give you 30 now, 30, and 30, something like that. So I definitely think there's a way of doing it. And then, Bissouma out the door, Sonny, because I think him going out, leaving with a cup and getting a big payday in Saudi is best for everybody. Werner, because he's already gone. And if I had to out-push Richie, because I think Mbumo could do enough up front that we wouldn't miss him, and you could potentially.
What's this out-push thing? I don't know why everyone's terrified of saying Richie. He's a fucking cop block, mate. He's a fucking cop block. Get out of my club, bro. I'm trying to get laid here by Jonathan fucking David. I'm trying to get some fucking third base by fucking Victor Osimhen. You gotta go, bro. You gotta go, little bro. Sorry, he ain't for me. So I love you, Richie. But you can still do it at Everton, bro. You'll still be in the 9 in Brazil if you do it for Everton. Sorry. Any of this romance about fucking Richie? Nah. Guys, we're gonna leave it there. I'm gonna take you back off mute. Sorry, I wasn't doing it deliberately. It was just because there was some scratchiness. Guys, stay where you are. I'm gonna send you over to Sava, and he's got his Sunday night the review show. I'm gonna try and do this every Sunday. It's the new one called The Meltdown, new show called The Meltdown. I'm going to bring people on every week. Connor, absolutely fucking phenomenal debut, mate. Love to have you, mate. Looking forward to having me. Get you on DMs and we'll figure out a spot in the week. Mark, mate, debut on the channel as well, mate. Absolutely sensational, bro. Love having you, mate. And I'm going to get you back on as well this week. Drew Zilla, my boy, first and foremost, I love you to pieces. You're the mod in chief. But thank more than that, mate, you never need to do fucking super chats or membership giveaways.
Love it.
I really appreciate you, mate. Absolutely sensational. I think there was also a couple of new members as well that snuck in at the end there. Paul Watkins, welcome to the team, and Nick Carey, both of you guys, and whoever got Blaine, thank you so much. Whoever got those 10, and Drew, whoever got those 20, absolutely insane, both of you guys. Then tomorrow there's going to be a members, it's going to be a fan phone-in show. I always say it's members only, and then I put it out to the members only, and none of you ever call in. So if you want to fucking tell me why I'm a dickhead, then you can come on and tell me. But we'll do that tomorrow. Guys, I want to say a massive thank you to all of you that have been around. Football Heritage TV, we're going to send you there now. To Faz, to Moondog as well. Guys, we are just at the start of something really impressive, or hopefully really exciting, rather, at Tottenham. The wheels of change are returning. And I want to ask you to come back here. So smash the like, smash the subscribe on your way out. And we'll see you tomorrow morning with more from Bugsy, Malone, and myself back out on the golf course. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.